Hey everybody, this is Matthew Poes of Poes Acoustics, and I've changed rooms. I'm with my
Yes.
friend Alex Evans from Atlanta Home Theater and Luxury Distribution. You just said that to me. That was a good line, though.
Actually, I think so. Yeah, I'm used to seeing you on video in your room,
Yep.
so I figured we'd change it up a little bit this time.
Yeah. And your room's a little better than mine. I'll be honest with you. You have one of the best home theater rooms that I've actually been in. And
Well, thank
I
you.
had the honor of getting to jump in and help design this room. I cannot take credit for this room, though. You and your team actually picked all the equipment that's in here. You guys came up with the interior design. You had Thomas, who works for you, who is an amazing tech. Did all the fabric in here, the lighting. It looks really cool. We'll throw in some pictures and video of that as well. So first off, why don't you tell us a little bit about the room, and then we can get into some stories about why I'm here and what we did while I was here.
Absolutely. So this room was uh, a collective group of love put into it. To be very honest with you, so I'm big into bringing in the right team. So we got Matthew over here, and Matthew actually did the HVAC design, and he did a lot of the theater design. So in no
Sound
way.
isolation shell too.
And sound
I'll take
isolation
credit for
shell.
that.
So he should be taking credit for a little bit more than what he's putting on. So what we did in this room is we did 11 bed layer channels. It's all Ascendo. We've got 3 black swans that are our LCRs, and we did 12 berylliums, as surrounds going around the room. And then also we did 6 pros from Ascendo, and they are Atmos speakers. So we've got 6 Atmos speakers above. We've got 11 bed layer channels, and we also have 6 subs, 4 double 18s, and we've got 2 infrasonic 32 subs.
Two. So this is actually a pretty. I think this is a gloves off, take no prisoners type of system. So the Black Swans are, first off, they're the best speakers that Ascendo makes, but they're also one of the better speakers, one of the best speakers on the market. Period.
Yeah.
Like this is a really good front stage you've got here. The rest of the speakers, of course, are designed to match with that. You've got the Ascendo amps. We've got a Trinnov Altitude 32 that is backing the system up. And you've got a fairly high channel count. It's not a huge room. It's a modest sized room. Good size, though. We actually just have this one set of seats here. That's what you have for the whole family, which
Does
when
it?
you originally told me you were doing this, I'm like, are you sure? I mean, you've got a big enough room. We can do more. Now that I'm here, I get it. Your whole family would fit in this fine.
Yeah, and the reason we did this because so on Sundays we have our family movie days where I've got 3 kids. You know, I've got my
And
oldest
they're
girl,
cute
she's
kids.
yeah, they're really cute kids. Of course I've got to say that, but they are really truly cute kids. Oldest is 9. I've got a 7 and 3-year-old. So we just all pile on. Typically it's me and the boys. We're Matthew sitting on this couch, and my wife and my daughter, they're over on this couch, and we're eating popcorn, we're having nerds and all types of stuff. And if you could actually see the floor right now, you would see it's kind of speckled with a whole bunch of different colors. That's nerds from the other day, because we just got
It's
back home and
it's
figured, hey, why not do a movie day outside of Sunday?
I look, my house has things like that too. I have hard floor, so if I had that, I'd actually have to vacuum that right away. But I get it. No, we have things like that. I actually feel like I have to take my home theater chairs apart about once a week just to clean the whatever it is they chose to eat in them that day. So, okay, so really awesome system, very well done. When my team came in, what we really did, and that's part of the partnership that I have with Atlanta Home Theater now, is that we brought in engineering skills that your team didn't have. So we basically complemented you guys. You have a huge amount of skills and capabilities in one area. We brought in some other skills. So we came in and we did the sound isolation shell design for this. We did lay out the speakers, although we largely kept what you guys were doing. We just did
Yeah.
it based on our approach. And then we worked closely with your team to pull this together. And then one of the things I wanted to do was figure out how good a job did we do. So I came back here and we decided to measure the noise floor, in part because I was looking for really quiet rooms. I also want to be able to say to you,
Yeah.
Alex, what can we do together? What are we capable of achieving? Because I don't really know until you measure it.
Of
It really only
course.
takes you so far. I'd love to tell you guys I can predict, but I think anybody who claims they can predict exactly how a room's going to come out is lying. We want to come close, obviously, and we're good at doing that, but this is another level. So, your room, anybody who's ever seen the so Keith Yates did this in a room, the way that you measure really, really low noise floor. So this was done in one of Keith's rooms, and it was also done in the Microsoft anechoic chamber. When room noise floors get too low, mics themselves become noisier than the room. And it becomes impossible to measure the noise floor of a room using just a low noise mic. So what you can actually do is use 2 mics and they're nose to nose with each other. And when you do that, you can use an FFT technique that allows you to do something like cross-correlation averaging, where what you're doing is you're averaging, first off, you're cross-correlating the noises. And there's normally the noises are all mixed together, but there's two sources of noises. You've got all the electronic noise in the equipment itself, the microphones, the preamp, the
Yeah.
computer. And then the other area of noise is the room noise. And the only noise we care about is the room noise. So we want to get rid of all that other noise. So this cross-correlation technique allows you to look at that. Any noise that's coherent, that's the room noise, you keep. Any noise that's incoherent, that's just random noise, that's the electronic noise, you can basically get rid of a big portion of it. You can't completely eliminate it, but you can reduce it by just averaging this more and more over time so it becomes more obvious what is room noise and what is not. So we did that in your room using two 1-inch matched microphones and this special technique. We actually did it probably 10 times just to confirm everything made sense. So we did it originally with you and I together. Now, partly I just wanted to show you this technique because it's kind of cool.
Yeah, it was a cool technique.
Yeah. This is the weird things I nerd out on. And we were too noisy to take the measurement. Like our existence in the room was raising the noise floor.
But I do breathe loud, so that could be part of it.
You were rustling a little bit.
Right.
I was joking. I was telling one of my friends, Ben Goff, that we had done this and how low. And he goes, "Did you do it with you guys in the room or not? Because that's kind of like an operable. Like you could argue that how quiet is it with somebody in the room? That's his argument. I don't know if I agree with that argument, but I said, well, Alex couldn't sit still, so he had to get out of the room. So we then did measurements later with Thomas. I ran the microphone cables under the door. The gaskets actually seal around the cables that we were using because I have like a really thin flat cable that I use for this. And we remeasured the noise again that way. And the noise number we got with everything operable, including the projector, the Trinnov processor, all the amplifiers on. So any little bit of hiss that might be in the background, any little bit of hum, whatever light noises and all that. And we ended up hitting a number that put us below NCB 15 and actually below NCB 10. It was so low that the system couldn't give us a number. So we switched to the NR scale, and the NR number turned out to be NR 8. And the only noise that was causing it to be as high as NR 8 was actually up in the high frequencies around the 8 kilohertz range, which very well could have still been some mic noise. It's hard to tell for sure.
Now for the audience, can you explain what NR8 is and give them an idea of what it is?
So it's a weighted noise number. So instead of it being a straight SPL number, which is meaningless, it's a weighted noise number that's related to how we perceive sound. NR is one of the older ones that goes all the way down to 0, which is why it's useful. And it actually it's not fully balanced towards what we hear, but the idea behind it is to reflect the fact that at higher frequencies, we are more sensitive to noise than at lower frequencies. If you were to just do like an A weighted, for instance, or even a C weighted, or worse yet, you were to do unweighted noise, you'd probably get a number that's like 50 or 60 dB. And that's not a very useful number because there's always going to be a lot more low frequency noise in a room than there is mid high frequency noise. But in your room, as an example, your noise level at 20 hertz was only like 30 dB. It needs to be around 70 dB to even be audible. You were like way below audibility. So who cares if the number is 50 or 60 dB total if most of that noise is low frequency noise you can't even hear? So the NR scale, the NC scale, the NCB scale, those are all variations of these weighted scales. Just like, as an example, A weighting and C weighting are weighted.
I always like to always know is NC. What does NC stand for?
Noise criteria. So NC is noise criteria. NCB is noise criteria balanced. It rebalanced the bass to basically allow for a little bit more low frequencies given that we're fairly insensitive. And then NR is just noise rating. And as I said, they're all variations designed for a little bit different purposes, but they have a different bottom. And unfortunately, NCB bottoms out at 10. NC bottoms out at 15. NR actually goes all the way down to 0. And you actually have to have some negative dB numbers to be able to hit that because it's a balanced number. So, or a weighted number, I should say. So then we turned everything off because we were just curious, well, how quiet is the room? The only thing we left on was the HVAC. So this was the HVAC still running because I wanted to see how quiet it would be. So the NR number we came up with was 4.
Yeah, that's low.
Is really low.
That's low.
It was 4, and on top of that, we were noticing that we were around minus 8 dB at a bunch of frequencies between 1 kilohertz and like 4 kilohertz. It was like really quiet. And then it did start to go up there, which is okay because we're actually pretty insensitive as you get higher. The There is no direct way to turn that into an NC number, but I was curious. So we asked ChatGPT. I imported the image with all the data and I said, "Can you infer what an NC number would be from this for me?" I explained how to do it, and ChatGPT, being pretty good at math, was able to figure that out, and it came up with a NC number for the room
What
of
number was that?
between 2 and 3, it said. Probably 2, it said, would be a fair assessment. It was a little hard to see exactly. There were some numbers that were fractions, like, for the sake of argument, I don't know, 4.5 dB.
Okay.
So depending on how you looked at that number, you would be either 2 or 3. You were right on the cusp of those 2.
So, in terms of quiet rooms, where would you say this ranks with some of the rooms you've done?
It's probably what well, I will say this, I recently figured out how to do this kind of low noise measurement. So in the past, I couldn't measure this low, so I don't know. Subjectively, it's one of, if not the quietest rooms I've ever done. Objectively, it's the quietest room I've ever measured. But as I said, I didn't have the capability of measuring this low in the past. This is a fairly new thing.
Funny thing, kind of off topic. My daughter comes in when I'm in the room, just sometimes I'll be on the phone to take calls because it's so quiet. She actually comes in to do her homework in
Oh,
here
because it's a nice quiet space for her to do that.
because it's a quiet space and she can actually
I think that
concentrate.
would freak my kid out. I don't know that Katya would be willing to come in here and or in a room like this and do. She doesn't like to go into my theater by herself. It scares her.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Maybe you got to turn lights on.
That's true. She didn't like the deck. So she likes to do her homework in here because it's nice and quiet.
She does, and it feels like time slows down. It's funny
Mhm.
enough when you're out and about and everybody's busy all the time. So you get in the car, you're always dealing with traffic, you're going to work, everything's moving so fast nowadays. But when you come into a quiet room, it almost feels like time stops.
Yeah.
It's
It-
almost it's a nice it brings you back to what it used to be when things didn't always have to happen so quickly.
yeah. And I think that's actually in some ways meant to be a selling point of what we offer people with these rooms. I
Yeah.
think people think, why do I need it to be that quiet? I mean, does it need to be NC2? Maybe not. But to get a room that's below NC or NCB 10, I think in general, the argument for trying to
Yeah.
get down that low is not just to enhance this experience, but like your room is a great example. This is not just a theater. It's actually a very comfortable, loungy space to be in. We've been sitting here. We did have movies ongoing, but I think we actually are mostly just talking.
Yeah.
It was just a comfortable space to have a conversation.
Well, I mean, we discussed this the other day with Michelle Boyd, designer from HGTV. Typically, people are
And close friend of ours.
very close friend. Typically, people are in the kitchen, and that's where they congregate.
Yep.
But what if we could build out spaces where you could congregate more often and be even more comfortable?
Yeah, I think he said competing with the kitchen. Is that what he was calling it?
That's exactly what he said.
Yeah, I mean, I think people maybe don't understand that. Well, from a design standpoint, kitchens are often now designed because of the open concept nature of homes to be the primary congregation space. So people like Michelle have to design them to be a good place to congregate around. But what if that isn't the only space we design
Yeah.
to be the congregation space? What if the media room, the living room, outdoors actually could be a place that competes with the kitchen? I think it's one of the reasons why people are putting kitchens outside, is because that's become one of the new congregation spaces.
I agree. And, a lot of times when people build rooms like this, they feel very disjointed from the home.
Yeah.
Because it feels like, well, that's the theater space, but then everything else in the home. And when designing this room and some of the rooms that we like to design, I know you're the same way, we like to keep constant continuity throughout
Yes.
every space. So
Yep.
it doesn't feel like there's anything that's detached, and it's not a space where it feels so dedicated. All you're doing is coming to watch movies.
Yeah.
Funny enough, that's not all we do. That's only half of what we do. It just so happens that one of the benefits is that you can watch movies in the room.
Mhm.
But the fact that it's so quiet, it's peaceful, you know. And in today's world, there's so much activity. It's nice to be able to sit back and say, I can gather my thoughts.
Yeah, no, I think that makes a lot of sense. Well, and I think you've built a room that does a really good job of showing how a space can be multi-use, can be comfortable. Most of what you do, actually, I would say, they are by technical capabilities dedicated home theaters, but by appearance, they're not what we call typically a dedicated home theater. You have the full capabilities with your team, and we can design together typical traditional dedicated home
Yeah.
theaters, but your own, I think, taste and Michelle's taste, and I agree with this, is that these spaces should be multi-use, comfortable, loungy. Let's avoid those traditional lazy boy recliners and actually put in something that is an equally comfortable, if not more, chair, but actually has a different look. You've mentioned before the need to make sure that when we're putting in high-end chairs, that if we're competing with designer furniture, that it also brings the same level of aesthetic and quality.
I agree. I agree. I mean, and here's the thing, everything evolves, every space evolves, and
Yep.
we want to make sure that in our industry we are evolving with the home.
Mhm.
We're working with the designer, we're working with the builder, we're working with the architect, and in doing so, we want to be a good partner. So at Atlanta Home Theater, I know you feel the same way at Poes Acoustics, is we're always trying to find a way to make the experience the best for the end user, for the client, because that's who it matters to, and we never want any of the spaces to feel like they don't belong.
Which makes a lot of sense to me. All right. Well, Alex, I want to thank you. I'd like to shoot some more videos with you. So I'm going to pause this video so that we can go ahead and shoot some more and our audience can go ahead and watch that. But I want to thank you for being on my channel, for having me in your home.
Of
You are a
course.
gracious guest. For people who don't know Alex, we were talking about this earlier. He's one of the sweetest, nicest guys I've ever met. He's
Thank you.
somebody who we started with a professional relationship. We've become friends. I think we've become friends.
Well, we have.
Okay.
There's no thinking about it.
Glad you feel that way. We talk a lot about getting our families together, which is something I very much want to do when we get an opportunity. We've known each other really not that long, about a year now, maybe year and a half.
Hasn't even been that long.
Maybe not even that long.
Yeah.
Maybe it's been a year at that.
Yeah, maybe about a year.
I think we met
Yeah.
for the first time in person actually at the Trinnov event, whenever that was. So
And that was last year. Was that in the fall?
something like that. I don't know. For those of you watching who
Yeah,
know, that's as long as we've actually known each other, and I think we've become close friends since then. And we've been working to work together. That's the way to put it. More and more because we really enjoy working together and
we
feel that
do.
we have great chemistry. And as I said, we've become friends. So thank you for having me out here. Thank you for doing this video with me right now. We'll be doing more stuff, and I'll just say to my audience, you're going to see more of us together because we really do feel that we work really well together.
We do. We do. And we believe in really good partnerships, and that's one thing that we've already noticed that we have is a very good partnership together.
Yeah. So we'll be doing that to offer more value to our clients. But I want to thank you again. And until next time, I got more videos coming on. Keep watching, subscribe to my channel, like these videos, and put in the comments what you think about this type of stuff, as well as what type of other content you want to see and what questions you might have. And if you have questions for Alex, put them here and I'll ask them and we'll get those answered. So thanks everybody.
Bye. Cheers.